we find ourselves deep within the halls of the Dread Fortress, a rarely traveled area, abandoned, cold. Cobwebs decorate the walls and corners. Only spiders call this place home. As we follow Vythorn, our new Lord of Fate, as he makes his way down into the dungeons. What goes through your mind, Vythorn, as you traverse these old steps, ones that you have not walked down in ages?
Vythorn, in deep contemplation as he walks through the halls of the Dread Fortress, as he's done many times before, and now the sound of newly crafted leather boots clacking, echoing off the walls in this solitary place as he goes down deeper and deeper. And it's almost as if as he traverses deeper physically in the Dread Fortress, that his mood becomes more solemn, more sad, as he thinks about the events that have transpired over the last season of death matches, over the span of time since he's taken power, and all of the conflicts and complications that go along with that, the frustration of his new assistant, the challenges of leadership, the constant infighting and rebellion, and having to be responsible for so many people and their bickering, and just nostalgic a bit for the way things used to be.
As those thoughts circle in that big scholarly brain of yours, you find yourself in front of a particular door. There is only one face that you will find behind here. A prison, should you go through. One you have not seen in a season's time.
Hesitating for a moment at the door, really trying to decide if this is something that he should worry about, if this is somewhere he should even be, but that is kind of a fleeting moment, kind of led on by this feeling of almost sorrow as he unlocks the door and pushes open the chambers.
There are small, dim lights here, and yet the figure looking at you squints. Ogdril? No, what am I saying? Vythorn.
Lucia, glad to see that you are well. I hope the accommodations haven't been too terrible. I know that it's not ideal, but hopefully you're being treated well.
Yes, my stay has been delightful. That sharp tongue comes back quite familiar to her. But the space itself, while dark and damp, does have some candlelight. Books in the corner, quite a humble bed mat as well. But manageable. Yes, I've really been enjoying my stay here, thanks.
Good.
She looks worn, tired.
Good. Well, I'm not really sure. I'm honestly not really sure why I'm here to, if to tell you the truth,
Sit, Vythorn. I haven't had company in a long time.
Yes, sure. As he magically pulls a chair closer to him and kind of flattening out his robes and almost preening himself a little bit to sit down in this chair, like a lord.
In your fanciful seat, as you get closer, you notice, yes, all those chains still are on Alucia. But as she moves and gestures, it's less restrained as you might think. She moves quite freely, as if they were just light bangles, jewelry upon her. Tell me, what could possibly bother the Lord of Fate?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm a little lonely, as it were. It's just not, it's not the same. I miss our conversations.
How could you be lonely? You control the fate of everyone out there. You could twist any of them to become your friend, to be your mentors, to join your crusade or whatever it is.
Yes, that's true. And I have a number of acquaintances that have helped pass the time here and there, but I just, it's all hollow. I don't, well, I can never truly know who is my real friend and who is just under my influence. Of course, I do know who is under my influence, but you know what I mean. It's not as
Because
fun.
it's everyone.
Yeah, it's just not as fun when you have to force it, you know?
Fun. That's a word that you chose. I think you're hiding something deeper. You're right that they're hollow. It's because they're not real, Vythorn. None of those are real. But you didn't care about that. When you became the Lord of Fate, it wasn't about having real relationships or letting people be people. It was that you had a plan. But when you make your own will that above all else, it's going to be lonely.
Yes, I suppose so. I can't help wonder sometimes what you would do if you were in my situation.
What I would do. I don't know. I see why it's tempting, is it not? But I'm honestly surprised you ended up where you were. I feel like I would be the one more likely to accept or want to crave such a power, but you, to make the decision to control the fate of others, I don't understand it. You've been a victim of that. And out of that, to protect yourself, what, you create other victims, Vythorn? Have you not become what Ogdril was to you? A controlling mastermind who decided how you'll fit in at the void of the role that you will play? I know that you will overthrow me time and time again. I let those risks grow. They're opportunities for you to have choice. And when we choose to be around others, you take that risk that they might not have that same will that you have. But you also then have the opportunity, that same risk, in which they can influence the future that you desire to become something greater or better that you couldn't envision on your own.
But why give me that choice if you know this is my nature? If you know this is what I'll decide, why make that risk? Why? Surely you've calculated for it. But it doesn't make any sense.
Nothing is perfect. and nothing is permanent. If you cannot accept that people will make mistakes, then you cannot accept people in your life. You will be lonely. The success that you will experience will be minimal. It will be alone. Your impact will not matter. I made my decision of what is more important to me. To take in the mistakes, the flaws, but also the beauty, the joys that it comes from allowing all of us to choose the lives that we live, to enrich each other, to choose to live side by side rather than alone. You have seen firsthand that life of loneliness. How do you feel?
I feel trapped. I feel more trapped than I ever did when I was your arbiter. I tried to take fate into my own hands and shape it so that I would never have to suffer again, so that those around me would not have to suffer the way I did. But it seems I've made a prison for us both.
Yours does have a comforting bed that is nicer than mine.
It is very nice. In fact, it was yours.
Perhaps we did not communicate as well as we could have. Perhaps we weren't the best that we could have been for each other. I have to say, if I could go back and do it differently, there's some things I would change. But I wouldn't change my trust in you. And then I would make sure that I deck out all the dungeons with comfortable beds in case I ever found myself here.
It's very wise. As Vythorn hangs his head in this moment, just taking in this advice, letting those words that Alucia has spoken kind of cut to his core and just absorb them, realizing that he is the architect of his own fate in this moment. Seeing his friend again and looking at this face and hearing these words, well, then I know what I have to do. As he opens his eyes and exhales,
you find yourself back into a familiar scene. Disrupted grounds surround you in this space. Angry clouds and a downpour of rain. We have found ourselves back to a memory that has not yet been completed. That familiar voice, that god of fate, Phil whispers in your ear. Who are you going to become? She asks again.
I will be who I have always been. I am the arbiter of the Grandmaster. I am the other side of her coin. And together, we will overcome fate.
Overcome fate? The That's not what we outlined. That was not your desire. What are you speaking of?
I thought it through, and things came to their logical conclusion. If I am going to be in control of my own fate, then that means choosing whatever it means for me. Whether I kill the Grandmaster or join her. I will control fate. You will not tempt me, pull the strings.
Interesting.
This is my choice.
This is your choice. A man of titles. How many times did I ask you who you are and you wanted to become something greater and you decide to stay with the Arbiter?
Well, I suppose when I think about it, the only title that matters to me is friend.
Okay, friend. Interesting. Well, we had our deal. The book was given. The void laid out in front of you. Vythorn. We will have to come to collect.
As he looks at Alucia, who's still frozen in this moment. We'll be ready for you.
Bill, with that Cheshire cat smile, will chuckle as it echoes throughout this space as she disappears. And as she is no longer there, her presence now absent, that rain begins to drop, soaking your clothes, dampening your hair, and you notice Alucia begin to move, still in that moment of fear, holding on to that choker.
Vythorn, in this moment, seeing the fear on her face, draws the dagger downward and channeling chaos energy through it, uses it to shatter the shackles around her neck. It's good to see you.
You know, I hate to admit it, but I didn't know what you were going to do there for a second.
That makes two of us, I think.
What?
Nothing.
Well, I'm glad that you're here back by my side. The Shadow King, at least, is not here, but we have so much we have to do, and I cannot do it alone. And she'll run to actually embrace you in that moment. A surprise hug. It is not something that has occurred often between the two of them, typically cold in stature, but it is a welcomed embrace. She'll pull back from it. We are going to change things. We are going to be ready. The threats that I have noticed here in the void, there's so many.
There are even more threats beyond the void that you aren't even aware of yet. Together,
We have to prepare.
yes, we have to prepare, and together we must be ready to fight fate itself.
Fight fate. What an interesting phrase. She'll look at you. But I like it. And she'll turn towards the acolytes who have been unsure of what to make in these moments. Seeing the fight that had just occurred, the Shadow King now gone. The Arbiter with dagger in hand to Alucia's throat, only to free her. They wait cautiously on bated breath as Alucia opens her wings. Acolytes, the time of corruption is over. Chaos for chaos' sake is not enough anymore. This is what binds us, that draws us here to the void. But we are not victims of it. It is in our blood, in our essence. It is the way in which we live, that we exist. This chaos energizes us, and it is ours to wield, not for others to wield over us. As we turn our pages and enter into a new era, together, I invite you all, as we strengthen our ranks, our minds, our bodies, so that we, as she looks towards the Arbiter, may be the masters of our own fate. Welcome and good night.